a few others, and she began praying for peace, for us to be protected, for everyone to be protected, for the violence to stop. It was a pretty terrifying moment, I have to say, and we didn't know when we were going to get out. We saw all of our colleagues going out off the floor, but we were stuck, and we could hear the banging outside the door as well. And so we were finally able to leave. We went down a series of very circuitous steps, and then finally were ushered to a safe location where we sat. But I just have to say that we are back in the chamber. I stepped off the floor to take this call. We will not allow these violent people who assaulted our Capitol, assaulted our Constitution, assaulted our democracy, have no regard whatsoever for the laws of this country, to stop us from doing our constitutional duty. So we are here, and by the end of this night, we will certify that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are the President and the Vice President of the United States. And regardless of what Donald Trump has done to overturn this election, to incite violence, we refuse to allow that to destroy our democracy. So we will conduct the will of the people and the duty for which we were sworn and we took an oath to here in Congress. But the damage is extensive, and it isn't going to be over tonight. We will have to rebuild, and it is horrific to me, absolutely horrific, that the President of the United States is still condoning these protesters and still claiming that this election is stolen. So hopefully more Republican colleagues will come out. I think some of them are shaken, and some of them are finally speaking out. But this has gone on for too long. It is too dangerous, and I'm not just talking about danger to our lives. Somebody died here, somebody was shot, but also to our country, to our Constitution, to the very idea of America and what we stand for here and around the world.
Congresswoman, this is O'Keefe alongside Nora and Major Garrett here. Thank you again for joining us tonight. One quick question about the House. You're someone who has a pretty good handle on the mood of your Democratic caucus. There has been talk today about impeaching the president in the next 2 weeks, and there's been talk of possibly even voting to remove the Republican members who object today. Do you support either of those actions? Do you think a large number of Democrats in your caucus would? Is that even worth doing at this point?
I think people are horrified by what has happened and horrified by the danger that President Trump presents to the country in this office, even for just another 2 weeks. And so I know that there are discussions, and I think, Ed, you might have even tweeted about this, about invoking the 25th Amendment. That is something that Vice President Pence could do, members of the cabinet could and should do. I am signing a letter with some of my colleagues, writing a letter with some of my colleagues to Vice President Pence about this. And I think that we have to hold Donald Trump accountable. He was absolutely responsible for inciting this violence, for fueling it, and he is a danger to our country. He is a danger to our Constitution. He is the only president who has refused to concede the election. And so these electoral college votes are not, it isn't just a protest. It's a protest to mollify a president who is refusing to accept the results of the people.
Congresswoman Jayapal, thank you so much for joining us as the work continues there on Capitol Hill. We're going to take a quick break. Our coverage of the assault on the Capitol continues in just a moment. The role of a journalist is to report about what our government is doing. I feel an incredible responsibility.
This is the moment.
We have to make sure that we're right, that we're fair. Would you move to add more justices to the Supreme Court and bring Americans a greater understanding, but also hopefully bring Americans closer together? That's why I wanted to become a journalist.
CBS Evening News with Nora O'Donnell. Weeknights on CBS and the CBS News app.
It is the question that matters matters the most. It takes you behind the story. Robert, it drives everything we do. It is the foundation of trust. And the truth that propels us forward.
What did you make of that?
It is the question. One word, 3 letters long. And without it, our purpose and our freedom fade. This is why. This afternoon, as an angry mob of thousands stormed the U.S. Capitol, there was a vacuum in leadership. No denunciation from either the President of the United States or even the Vice President. And then we heard that President-elect Joe Biden would address the nation before any of them. He came before the cameras in Wilmington, Delaware, and spoke and said, this is an assault on the citadel of liberty, an assault on our representatives, an assault on public servants, an assault on the rule of law, in his words. CBS's Nicole Killian is covering the transition, and she joins us tonight from Wilmington, Delaware. Good evening, Nicole.
Good evening to you, Nora, and we do expect to hear more from President-elect Joe Biden tomorrow, but earlier today he was very deliberate in his remarks. He was actually supposed to speak about the economy, but scrapped those remarks to address the unfolding unrest in the nation's capital. And as he said our democracy is under unprecedented assault, unlike anything we have seen in modern times. He called on President Trump to step up and said that president's words matter. And he said that he was shocked and saddened that our nation has reached such a dark moment, and made clear that what happened today at the Capitol was not a protest, but an insurrection.
Let me be very clear. The scenes of chaos at the Capitol do not reflect a true America, do not represent who we are. What we're seeing are a small number of extremists dedicated to lawlessness. This is not dissent. It's disorder. It's chaos. It borders on sedition. And it must end now.
Now, after the president-elect spoke, I asked him if he was concerned about his own inauguration and the prospect for more violence. He said that he is not concerned about his safety, his security, or the inauguration. He said that the American people will step up, and he declared enough is enough. Of course, we're now just 2 weeks away from Inauguration Day. Nora?
Nicole Killian there in Wilmington, Delaware. The president-elect speaking as his own vice president-elect was there on Capitol Hill still as a sitting U.S. senator. Part of the time she was not there during the day, we were told by her Secret Service and other officials close with her. But nevertheless, another line from the president-elect that struck to me is that the words of a president are very important, that the words of a president can inspire, and they can also incite. And what's remarkable today is the number of Republican lawmakers that are accusing the president directly of inciting this violence, which suggests a not only cleaving or a final cleaving with President Trump, but a question also about responsibility, which in the past they have been unwilling to or unable to ascribe to the president.
It's an artful effort to shed complicity, and it may not succeed.
Completely on their own part.
Yes, because Republicans have aided and abetted and created this space of forgiveness for the president that seemed to have no limits. Infinite elasticity. Every pushing against the understood norms of the presidency itself, they seem to find a way to accommodate, excuse, or in some way contextualize as more harmless than it actually sounded. And we have had people, for example, one of the top election officials in Georgia, sound warnings many weeks ago. The president's rhetoric is dangerous. It will incite violence. People will get hurt. Someone will get shot. That's exactly what was predicted 3 or 4 weeks ago by a top official in Georgia, a Republican. And that is exactly what's come to pass.
A woman was shot tonight and died.
Blood was spilled in the United States Capitol, American on American, And there will be an attempt probably by some in the most loyal Trump faction to say, oh, those probably weren't Trump supporters. Let the video speak for itself. Let the illustrative hats, flags, and demonstrable signs of Trumpian support reveal their intent and who they were and what they were doing in the Capitol. Point one. Point two, incitement and insurrection, Nora, those are words from another lost place in American history, the Civil War. We are not or should not be at that place. Yet we found ourselves today inexplicably, horrifyingly at that precipice. It's an abyss. Republicans are looking into it, and they better recoil from it.
Major, thank you. I want to bring in Senator Chris Coons. He is a Democrat from Delaware. And Senator, you're known as someone who reaches across the aisle to their colleagues. Tell me what you're hearing from your Republican colleagues tonight.
Well, Nora, this has been a very difficult day in the United States Capitol. A day that began with a recognition that more than a dozen of my Republican colleagues intended to do something unprecedented in that they were going to challenge as a group the election and try and disenfranchise millions of voters. But like the impeachment trial of nearly a year ago, I think most of us who slogged into the Capitol today thought we knew the outcome and thought we knew that this would be a mostly boring and long evening of speeches, constitutionally significant, troubling, but unremarkable. Instead, as you know, we suffered an assault on the Capitol of the United States. We saw chaos, and on my way over here, I went past in the rotunda the litter, the garbage, the mess that was left behind by hundreds of protesters, rioters, thugs, who took possession of the United States Capitol, and dozens of fully equipped armored troops wearing battle armor, resting after a day taking back control of our nation's capital. That changed the votes of about half of my Republican colleagues who earlier in the day had intended